successfully made our little swatches, and just random swatches however we want. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go File and New, and I'm going to create a new project. So you're going to get this new project gallery. Down over here, you're going to see social, print, photo, screen. These are all like set sizes. You can make your own size up here. I'm going to tell you, let's go to photo, and we could go 8 by 12 is fine. You know, it really doesn't matter too much. But the thing is that we want to have the photo, this DPI, that's digital pixels per inch. If this number is low, it will look fine on your computer screen, but if you try to print it out at any point, it's not going to maybe look that great. And on the other side of it is that if we do use these things and you want to make quality prints out of them, you can't make something a higher resolution after the fact. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, so just creating a new one over there, and for all intents and purposes, we got the white background. I don't know what color you want to work on. I don't know if you want to maybe put a texture or another swatch as like a base background. What I'm gonna do for right now is just go over it with you, and you can always change this later on. But you got your color picker down here. It may not be red that's in the color picker. You may have different colors in here. But once you click on that top box, you're going to get this color picker that pops up. There's a slide bar over here. Adjust whatever color you want. You click on it. This is the old color. This is the new color. You click OK, and you'll see whatever color you just selected should be in that top box. When I go up my toolbar on this side, you're going to see there's one box that looks like basically a shaded rectangle. It's called the gradient tool. G is the shortcut to it. When we click and hold, we're going to get onto the paint bucket. And once I have my paint bucket, I just click on my background and it just fills the whole background with whatever color we picked. And since we'll work in different layers, you can always change this later. You might want to even put like a picture of the cosmos as your background. It doesn't really matter. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to one of my swatches. I got my swatch here. I'm on the layer that the swatch is on. You can see that right there. And then I can just do Control A. Do you have a Mac at home, or are you a PC person?
PC.
Okay, so yeah, so you're gonna hit Control and hold down Control, tap the letter A. You might see there was a little tiny dashed line box that fills up the entire screen. That's just a selection marquee. And if I hold down Control and tap C, that will copy it. And then when I go back over here, Control V will paste it on. Oops. I have the arm selected from before when I did Dominica's thing. So I'll just copy that again and just paste. All right, so now when I've pasted my picture, it's going to paste onto this background. You may see that the swatch you made is either really, really big or really, really small. Mine fits in this space pretty good because it was a high resolution image, but some of the things you got from the internet might be low. And if it popped up really, really tiny or super big and bigger than the screen, well then we're gonna have to mess around with it a little bit. But either way it comes up, you're gonna wanna resize it. Now if it's super tiny, when you resize it, it may look blurry. So if that's the case, then we might have to use a different image. Is the thing that you pasted on really, really small? Or are you in the middle of pasting something on?
Wait, what happened?
Are you doing this with me, or are you just watching? Are you even out there? Am I talking to myself? All right, so either way I'm recording, so I
forgot to unmute, sorry.
Okay, all right, that's not a big deal. I'm just going to keep going, and then you can just rewatch. So again, what you're going to have, is you're going to have Control Z is undo. So I've pasted that little swatch on. I have it. It's called Layer 1 now. It pastes on its own layer, and I may want to move it and resize it and change it. So how am I going to do that? The top tool over here is the Move tool. All right, the very first one, it's a arrow with a little plus sign next to it. When I click and drag on this thing, you can see I can move this thing around. I also want to adjust the sizes of it. So when we click on our tools, right up here, when we click on tools, this bar over here changes. It gives us our tool options. For the move tool, there's auto select. There's also transform controls. If I click that and select that, you'll notice that as I have this, suddenly this sort of boundary box has appeared around it, and it has these little squares. I'm sorry that I picked gray, but you can see those little squares that are right over there. And when I go near those squares, I get different arrows. This arrow over here, the diagonal arrow, is to scale it up or down. Now, if I move it around, you can see I kind of squish it and change it and alter it. I'm going to undo that, hit Control Z, and get back over there. And then what I'm going to do is I want to kind of shrink this down, but I want to keep its ratio. So as I'm shrinking it down, I'm going to hold down the Shift key. And when I do that, it will keep that picture or whatever I'm selecting together as the way I want it. So I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller to work with it, and I'm just going to place it there. Now what I want to do is I'm going to go up and pick up a different sort of swatch. So here on this layer, Control A, Control C, go back to my new project and hit Control V. I like the size of this thing, I guess. I'm just going to move it to the side for right now. So I have it. And then I'm going to go over and grab another swatch. Control A to select all. Let me just move this into the picture frame. Yep. Control A to select all. Control C to copy it. And then Control V, like Victor, to paste it. I can always mess around with the resizing of it. And again, hold down Shift when they're resizing them. So I'm going to grab these pieces. I think I made one more. Okay. Control A, Control C, Control V. Now you're going to notice this one popped up pretty small. I can resize it a little bit. Now, for the collage purposes, you may want to kind of think about adjusting some things to small, medium, large, not having them all exactly the same size and everything else like that. But what you notice over here is that when I move this around, I'm moving around this piece because I'm selected on layer 4. And if I click on layer 3, all I'm moving around, no matter where I click, is layer 3. And if I click and so forth, it just changes it. Now, if you want to be able to click on the piece itself and just move it no matter what, you would go up to your move tool options here and hit auto select. So now when I hit auto select, whenever I click on the particular thing, I'm moving whatever I'm clicked on. So it's a matter of a way of working. Some people like it one way, some people like another, but that's one thing to keep an eye on, that you can have auto select, and that way you can kind of play around with these things and sort of move and adjust them. And then you can also do transform controls to make them bigger or smaller. So right now I have some elements over here, and I might want to think that I want to make some of them bigger and some of them smaller. So I'm going to play around with some scale and some issues, and you can see you can also turn them and tilt them when they're in transform. And when you're in the transform option, like when I'm making things smaller or larger, you're going to find when I click on another part of it, I can't click on another part of it. It's because when you're in transform and you've done something to the actual thing, you have to kind of finish that command. To finish that command, I press enter. And then when I press enter, I'm able to go switch and play around with another piece. Now, I'm putting this piece over here, and I think I want to kind of see what this piece looks like in front of the other one. And this is where I'll play with my layer sort of order. So you can see right now I'm on layer 4, and that one is in front of this one. But if I click on the layer and I just drag it down a few layers, you see now it's behind it. Now if I try to move it, it's sort of hidden back over there. So that's one thing when you're working, you may want to kind of mess around with what's in front and what's in back. And again, if you find yourself in a situation where you're clicking on something and it's not working, just hit enter, and that way you should be able to sort of get out of the transform option. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with the arrangement, and this is something that you could do and spend really 20, 30, 40 minutes trying to get what you actually want together. And then you might have them all together, and it looks a little bit like a little bit of a mess. And I kind of want to see about sort of adjusting and changing these things so they kind of stand out from one another a little bit. So I'm going to go through and do some of the layer effects. Now to zoom in and zoom out like what I just did, I held down Control and I pressed the plus key, and then next to it the minus key. Those two keys are right up top near the delete or backspace key. So plus or minus. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to play around a little bit with these layers, and I'm going to look at this top layer over here, layer number 4. You can always click on those layers and rename them, and sometimes that might be helpful for you to just keep things in order. But here on this layer, I can double click on the gray area, and then you're going to get something coming out that looks like layer style. And on this menu, you're going to see a lot of different things. Some of them will do things to your picture, like when I click bevel and emboss. You see a little outline popped up over there. If I click on the actual bevel and emboss tab, you'll see the options that come out, and you'll be able to kind of play around with some of those options and see what they do. So in this case, it kind of bevels and embosses. What it does is it creates that effect of like a raised edge to my photograph over there, and by altering these levels, you can kind of see how it does over there. Inner bevel, you can put it as an emboss. You can see what that looks like. You can put an outer bevel on it and see what that looks like. But what these all do is some of them do them well and some of them don't, but it adds the ability to sort of like create an effect on this thing that sort of makes it stand out from the other ones. And you can try a bunch of different things as far as those things. You can make a layer effect happen, or you could just click off of it and it goes back to normal. So these are effects that you could change later on. You can go through and play with some of them, but I think that for our purposes, either like the bevel or emboss, sometimes the drop shadow, what the drop shadow will do, and I'll just show you that one, it might create the effect that your piece is kind of floating a little bit above the other one, so it can create a little bit of depth. So you see like I'm creating a shadow and I'm able to move that shadow around, so it might create the situation where your collage kind of looks like they're floating pieces, sort of one on top of the other, and you can adjust how dark or light that little shadow is. You can also even decide to change the color of that sort of thing. So there are a lot of things that you could do with layer effects that's going to give your pieces a sense of separating from just being a mess of kaleidoscopic craziness. So what I'm going to do really quickly here is I'm going to add a couple effects to my pieces. By doing that, I selected this piece, that's layer 3, and I'll double click on the gray area of layer 3. To rename the layer, I would double click on the word on itself, and I'll just call this the orange and blue, and then I click over here, and then I could do something like stroke. Stroke adds an outline to that particular piece. You can change the color of that outline. You can change the thickness of that outline. You could change if that outline is in the middle, center, or inside of the picture. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mess around with some of those little effects that we have over there. I'm going to just do a little something different for each one. Double click on there. I'll get outer glow, pattern overlay, which will just mess up your entire thing, but you have the option of messing around with some of these other options and sort of creating your own little swatches over here. If you like that stuff, I can almost show you how you can make your own swatches later on, although we do need Illustrator to do that. I'll put in the outer glow. The outer glow will create a sort of glowing edge to that. I'll hit OK, and then I'll click on the last one, and what I'll do is, let's see what some of these other things do. You can add that pattern effect over top of it, either or. I'm just going to hit OK. So I have all my things over there. Now, I think that you can play around with your swatches, and you can even do some things over here where you can create a sort of background for your character. And I think if you work photographically, then throwing the hand-drawn pieces over top of it could be kind of interesting. I think the thing about the collage, this is not the finest collage I've ever created by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, you can kind of do some things to just, I guess, kind of make a different kind of feel and make a more of a graphic design kind of background out of it. One or two more commands I want to show you before I stop over here is, let's just say, for example, I like this eyeball over here, and you know what, I want another one in this picture. Well, while I'm selected on this layer, I can hold down Control and then press the letter J, like jump. And what you're going to see, boom, all of a sudden, it says eyeball copy. Things got a little darker here. But when I move that, I've got an identical sort of copy of that particular little piece over there. And if I hit Control and J again, I can get another one and another one and another one. So you could make different swatches out of the same thing, or you can even sort of, I guess, duplicate some of them to do some of that, some of those effects. If you really want to get crazy, we can also manipulate multiple layers at the same time. So what I can do is, if I really love this thing, I can hold down Shift. I can hold down Shift and select multiple layers. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I selected all my color layers over here, and I have them all selected. And since I have transform controls, I can opt to shrink them all down at the same size, same time. Unfortunately, Mr. B's a little stupid and didn't realize it's going to eat up a lot of computing power, but there we go. We've got it. It's kind of small, and then I'm able to sort of reduce everything all together. I've got my little piece over here, and I'll just kind of place that stuff. And you know what? I really like this, and I want to kind of make this into like a symmetrical design. So while I have everything selected, I'm going to then again hit Control J. And if my computer doesn't crash, you'll see it duplicated all of those layers. Now, all of them are connected together right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my Move tool, and I'm going to move that one over here. So you see I have two of them. And since they're all still selected, now I'm going to do something to sort of flip them. I'm going to go to Edit. I'm going to go to Transform. And I'm going to go to Flip Horizontally. Now you see that I've been able to kind of duplicate that and create this sort of weird textural thing, which might look like a stage set design like we were originally talking about over there. And by adding the drop shadows and some of those effects, I think you can kind of create a weird, funky kind of background that then, again, we can always stage your individual character. We can cut that character out and then place them in this environment. You know, you could do some other things. We could talk about some digital painting things. I know I threw a lot of stuff at you right there really quick, but that's why we recorded it.